But I want to talk about this because this has been the most popular subject on my channel. Has been Millie Weaver. I only did 2 videos on Millie Weaver. Initial report on her being arrested, and then a review of her movie Shadowgate. I thought about doing follow-up videos. There was other information that I wanted to touch on, but there's just this disinterest in this subject because I'm not as well versed with it, everything that I need to be, which I guess has never stopped me before. And also because there's just some questions that I just don't know the answers to, that I would just be bringing you those questions. But because there's been an update, even though it's about a week old, I figured I'd talk about it. It's, again, the most popular thing on my channel. So the judge has dismissed all charges against investigative journalist Millie Weaver. If you remember, she was arrested suspiciously the day of releasing her documentary Shadowgate a few months ago. And she was at the time working for, and I can't say his name, so let's just call him AJ Styles, even though he's not a wrestler, and the War on Information, to kind of go Broken Matt Hardy in the way of saying the name of his website. But he initially was very supportive and then let her go and was kind of standoffish towards her. And, you know, he said things about her documentary implicating Roger Stone, which it didn't. One of my criticisms of the documentary personally was how much it focused on the Roger Stone situation and how little I cared about it. And they were really blowing smoke up his butt. I thought they were the opposite, but apparently AJ Styles didn't, and he let her go, and she was disgraced, and is reporting. Actually, let me go. Oops, don't want to knock the damn camera down. I almost did looking for this mouse. There was reporting, kind of mixed reporting on what happened. Situation with her mother. Even she said her mother is mentally ill, not reliable, even though her mother gave a report that seemed to defend Millie when she got arrested. There's just a lot of, I don't even know what the word is, there's just a lot of question marks in all directions regarding the Millie Weaver situation. I think that all this max from the information she's actually presenting is a lot of good information as far as the Shadowgate. Even though I didn't like the whole documentary, I thought it got too far into the Walmart everyone against Trump theory, which, I mean, I'm not a Trump supporter even though I voted for him. I really care more about the actual individuals of the American people. So when you talk about her documentary, which talks about how not only election interference, which we've seen with the Hunter Biden situation, but how their IA agents, or IA operations, how they affect the average American is much more important than how they affect these politicians. That's just my theory of it. That's just my view on it. And so when it got into that, I didn't like it. But it was very complimentary towards Roger Stone. So the fact that AJ has so many issues, and of course I'm talking about Jones. You can't really say his name. But the fact that he has so many issues with her reporting that he pulled his promotion and pulled all his working relations and working ties with her was very suspicious. Not only was that suspicious, Ezra Levant, who runs Rebel News or works for Rebel News, which is a news organization. They have a YouTube channel, and they're based out of Canada. He actually started the GoFundMe for her legal expenses, which obviously have went a long way because these charges have been dismissed. But to my knowledge, unless it was an update during one of his live streams, which it could have been, he could have done a live stream and talked about it and have talked about the situation. But I hadn't seen any dedicated videos towards Millie Weaver from him, despite the fact that he set up her GoFundMe. And in fact, not only was that the case, when you watch the video, which I won't show on this podcast, but if you look for Millie Weaver, she's outside of the courthouse talking about her getting exonerated. She thanks, the fans and people who supported her, but she didn't thank Ezra Levant, despite the fact that he again set up the GoFundMe. So that's very suspicious to me. It's like, what is going on? So she has a Shadowgate 2, which I probably will do a review on once I get a chance to watch it. I'm very busy. And she's been exonerated, or at least the charges dismissed, and she's working towards getting her record expunged from this situation where basically, I don't think I talked about the incident, but she was arrested supposedly for a domestic incident with her mother. And again, there was dispute over what happened. She considered her mother to be unreliable and mentally ill. Her mother defended her and said there was a dispute over her cell phone. The point is, she was arrested over this weird sealed grand jury that took place a month before where the warrant was placed, and then she was only arrested the day her documentary released, which was the suspicious kind of smoking gun that got everyone interested. But then again, the charges were dropped, and here we are. The charges have now been dropped. So my other thoughts on it are, no one in the alternative news community has really defended her or talked much about her since the initial arrest. They haven't even talked about the charges being dropped. Why is that? That's very suspicious, right? Especially when you talk about Rebel News and Wars and any other alternative news. And I haven't checked. I should have checked now that I think about it. Because Tim Pool did give us some coverage when it initially happened. I cannot remember if he followed up. He may have. So I apologize if he did and I didn't include it. But there's just like this lack of reporting on the story after that. And it's very weird. Now, I will give them some bit of a angel's advocate in that one of Millie's sources in this whole Shadowgate conspiracy, she in fact did a live stream with the lady, and I talked about it a little bit on my Shadowgate documentary, the woman Tori. Her husband is a fan of cuties. That's probably the best way of putting it. A convicted fan of cuties, if that makes it a little bit more implicated. And I can, or a little bit more clear of what I'm trying to say. And I can see someone who, regardless of the veracity of that source with their information, because I do think a lot of information contained in the documentary has validity, but I can see people just saying, I'm not touching this. And you're going to deal with her, I'm not going to deal with you. I understand that from that standpoint. So even though I've been critical of all these media organizations distancing themselves from Millie Weaver, I can understand at least that bit of it from the standpoint of those organizations, because these aren't the same organizations that would defend cuties, right? So I can see them saying, hey, this person has someone they're married to who was convicted of what, and you're using them as a source, I'm not going to deal with it. And that may be it. That could be the end-all, be-all why you don't see Rebel News or why Wars just let her go and kept it moving, and you don't see any criticism of AJ for this. You don't, just like you didn't really see any criticism for AJ when he talked about Joe Rogan, because he goes on the podcast. It's another entertaining episode. They use the fact checkers, and something it was a lot of controversy about that, and I'm proud of Rogan for at least having him on. But there's no talk about what happened with this Weaver situation, and it's really, the silence is deafening. Again, I played Angel's Advocate. It could very well be Tori and her weird, creepy husband, because that is uncalled for. And if that's what gets the people to shy away, I understand it. I just find it really weird that the charges got dismissed. All of this talk about Millie Weaver initially when it first happened, and then nothing. So that's pretty much it on that. I don't really have much to add because I don't really know what to say. I don't know if her sources are all trustworthy, even though, again, some of the information is definitely valid. I haven't seen the second movie, when I will. And I don't know why no one's even touched that. Even if that is the case, I think that would be something to touch, especially if you hired this woman for, however long she worked for Infowars. I said her name. Or if you're Rebel News and you would at least put yourself on the neck enough to create a GoFundMe for her. I think it's a good question of why you haven't really spoke up after this incident and after the charges have been dropped.